that these things are completely valid. So, there's a lot of people, a lot of spiritual people, or truth-seeking people out there that say that we have different lives, and before we incarnate here, we choose certain people that are inevitably going to, come into our life to act as teachers. It could be friends, lovers, literary teachers, parents, whatever, friends, etc. And again, it's like, use your own discretion with these things, validate things in your own experience, but also, even if you think something is really happening, still question it. Really look deep and close and really see if you're just projecting your idealisms onto it, or if it seems like it's really the real thing. And we could also choose before we incarnate in, who's going to play dark roles in our life, like who's going to be more, let's say, traumatizing to us, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, maybe even physically, as much as I hate to say it. We've all been through levels of trauma and so-called abuse to varying degrees, whether it's just, a bully at school when we were young, or we got beat up a lot by a bully, or it could be anything. So, and a lot of people want to say, well, it's karma, it's destiny, why some people have worse things happen than other people. I can't validate all that myself. It sounds good on paper, it sounds like a good way to kind of rationalize and explain everything, explain why bad things happen to good people, so-called good people and so forth. So who knows? Are there true victims? Are there even true perpetrators? These are all questions to ponder in life, and I thought about it a good amount and asked and tried to research, and all it came up was sort of more questions than answers when all was said and done, and more kind of confusion and disillusionment. But I think it's on a physics level, I think it's possible to sort of have these soul-to-soul connections where things are happening, you could say, non-locally, like we're kind of connecting with people in a dream state, or we're having thoughts about them and maybe they're thinking about us at the same time, or we have these unusual synchronicities and coincidences that sort of just seem like more than just random chance. And I think there's some validity to these kind of things. The more tuned into someone we are, the more connected we are to someone on different levels, the more likely we're going to have things like that, I think. And also the more, you could say, the more we are connected to our spirit, our higher self, whatever you want to call it, I think also the more likely we're going to have those things. The more our so-called third eye or pineal gland is opened up. And by the way, on my Spotify playlist deep dive meditation list, you can find meditations that will actually help to open up the pineal gland. That's one of the big keys. This is something I overlooked in any previous topics, but that's a big one. Opening up your third eye, pineal gland, is going to make you see or sense sort of phenomenon and have more of an insight into the deeper, subtle layers of things. Because there's a lot more happening around us than just what our five senses can perceive, and including with people, because actions speak louder than words. So usually the most we have to go by is either typed words on the internet or a conversation with someone, but there's so much more behind than just their words and their tone of voice and their body language. And once you open yourself up, you can really get a sense of who you can trust more and who you can't trust more. And so that's all I really have to say about all those topics. It's sort of whatever you believe, whatever you validate in your own experience. And, in certain beliefs, even if they're not something that we absolutely can prove 100%, some of them are just healthy beliefs, because even if you're sort of distorting reality with something that sounds great, it's very positive and it's uplifting, it makes you feel good. Well, there's lots of things to do that. A movie that's a fantasy can make us feel good by watching it. It may not have validity in reality. It may be based completely on fiction, but who knows? At least it's on the positive side of things and can make you feel better. So whatever works for you, when all is said and done. you know, we live in a reality where there's so much unproven things, so much theories and opinions and beliefs and different perspectives and paradoxes and things that contradict other things and so forth. So it can be hard to really sort of like, you know, get yourself completely centered in what is a definite thing in life. There's a lot of open-ended possibilities and a lot of gray area to things, and it's actually kind of good it's that way, because if everything was so set and concrete, then life wouldn't be as fun. And here we live in a world of extreme duality of both sides of everything, and that can cause a lot of issues, but it also can make it for a very interesting ride, because there's so many extremes. You know, someone can be this extreme and then the next second be that extreme. They can change their mind this way, then that way, who knows? It's very unpredictable. So it kind of makes it more fun and interesting, but it can also make it more challenging and hard to cope with at the same time. But I was trying to think if I can say anything else about sort of the topic of soulmates and whatnot. And I mean, I think destiny is kind of a valid thing. I think it's like we have free will, but then again, certain things might be predestined to come in. But we probably have choice in sort of the actual things that happen. Some of them could be inevitable, but then we can sort of play around with it and create it. And it's almost like, if you look at it like Play-Doh, maybe we're going to come across certain colors of Play-Dohs in our life, and they're just going to come in, but how we shape it, you know, sort of some of the outcome and whatever could be a little different depending on just our own free will, you know. So I think we sort of have free will in some ways, and in other ways we don't. That's just my kind of speculation. And I think a lot of people a lot of wise people out there would say the same thing. And so now another thing about relationships is there's definitely certain people out there we have to be very leery about. There's people there's very dark people out there that are very good at portraying themselves as very good people initially, and there's a lot of good master manipulators out there, and I highly recommend, just, you know, no matter who you are, if you haven't researched it, just for your own best interest and protection, is finding out all about the signs and things to look out for from people who match, you know, the criteria of being like a sociopath or a psychopath. Because I think in my research, there's like 5% of the population is like that. And so that means that you're very likely to either already know one, at least one, or have known or will know someone at some point. And the more you're out there in the dating world, the more likely you are to eventually meet one. And so once you know the signs, they're very easy to spot out. If you don't, then you can be really taken for a ride and for a long time and duped and wonder what the hell is going on, because it can be very confusing if you're not well versed on their behavior. So that's another thing, is I find that very important to educate yourself about those kind of people. Let's see. Now, on the topic of, you know, let's see. Because before I had this conversation, I was really having a lot of epiphanies, and then, of course, when you actually are talking, then sometimes you start to kind of forget, and then you try to remember, and I'm having one of those moments. But you know, a lot of people are so disillusioned these days because there's such a high rate of divorce, and then so if divorces are so high, then relationships themselves are also at an all-time high and breaking up. So if you're in a committed relationship, then just with those statistics alone, that can probably make you feel on edge and worry that the relationship could end any time. I think the key is, with a committed style relationship, with monogamy or non-monogamy, whatever you choose, I would say both are very popular these days. I would say even non-monogamy is actually more popular, generally speaking, these days. Because of those statistics, people see it more realistic, because they know that people come and go in your life, and the more you try to hold on to one person, the more kind of likely you are to lose them and that kind of thing. So, and with so many options out there, especially on the internet, you go on Instagram, and almost everyone's on there. So it's certainly not a dating app, but people do meet on there. I think it's getting more popular for that these days. Now we have direct message right on the desktop as opposed to the cell phone, so it's a lot easier. And you know, it's a lot of people may not respond to your messages, but if you do use Instagram and you want to use it sort of covertly as a dating platform, I recommend just following anyone you might like, liking maybe 3 to 4 of their pictures and leaving it. And if they follow you back and they start liking your stuff you put up, and then they might comment, and then you comment, you build that up over maybe a couple of weeks, and then you just come out and say, hey, I just seem like we should talk because, you know, we're liking a lot of each other's stuff, and you know, thanks for following me, and let's see if they get back to that, and just keep going, you know. It's just like in person. You don't have to say anything too outlandish. If someone is really interested, they're not going to want to lose you, you know. So don't overthink it. But yeah, it's like, I think one of the biggest keys is getting so secure and confident in yourself that if you lose someone in a relationship, or if you're in open relationships and you lose, let's say, your main partner, if you decide to have a main partner in such a involvement, is that if it inevitably ends, which honestly, you know, if we get down to reality, it actually more likely is than not, especially the younger you are. That's just the reality that you're virtually guaranteed for your current relationship. I know you may not want to face it. Some people could be with that person in their life, great. And I would say, if you really want to get to the hard math and statistics, and what's really realistic is the younger you are, the more likely your committed relationship or your main partner is likely to end at some point. And the younger you are, probably the shorter it's going to last. And that's just my speculation. I'm not trying to like ruin any idealisms of anyone or break someone's, you know, love or anything like that. But just I think it's wiser to be realistic than it is to sort of distort reality so that you can feel more comfortable and secure and like you're in control of everything. That's not really the way to go when all is said and done. Just the more secure and confident you get in yourself, because if it ends, then you know that it really had nothing to do with you. You're not going to distort reality and make it into what it's not while you go and project all your insecurities, all you know, blaming yourself, and the list goes on, or blaming the other person, getting mad at the other person, and being spiteful or sort of revenge-minded. Or if you broke up with them, of course, it's easy, you're in the easier boat to be in. Let's face it. But or if it ends mutually, that's the best way. But you know, so regardless of how it ends, if you're secure and confident in yourself, you've really worked on your shadow side, and you've done like the work I talk about. For example, in my deep dive meditation list on Spotify, I know I keep recommending that, but I really can't recommend it enough because it's helped me a lot, and I know it can help everyone else a lot too. And because even if you're in a relationship, you know, don't set your happiness on someone else. Don't rely on them to feel good or to make you feel whole and complete, because that's also going down the wrong road too. The more that you're whole and complete amongst yourself, whether you're with someone or not, the better. And when it probably inevitably ends, and you know, you're gonna deal with it so much better. So another thing is like there's two kinds. So this is one of the big epiphanies I had before, and now it's coming to me. There's really two kinds of love, if you will. There's like this. On one extreme, you look at a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is the most false and it's most distorted. That's the kind of love I'm talking about now, where it's like this sort of infatuation kind of love, where you just have a crush on someone, but then you put them on a platform and you sort of project this, maybe all your Disney conditioning, programming all the Disney movies, and like, like they're like the white knight that maybe, you hope saves you, and like you're the princess that's waiting to be saved, and you're going to play that card, and like sort of put yourself up on a pedestal where you're like this, glamorous princess, and a knight in shining armor is going to save you, and you're going to live happily ever after in your white picket fence in your, American dream home and all that. I mean, you're probably not going to blame me for saying that seems like a big fantasy and not really too realistic. But the more that you play that game, where it's almost like your lower self, if you look at it from your higher self to your lower self, this version of love is coming from your lower self. It's coming from your ego, and it's sort of not only is it driven mostly by just like animal instincts, like your hormones, your attraction, and if you haven't done a lot of your shadow work, then you're going to feel like you need this person. You're so in love with them. And is it really love though, or is it really just like almost like a sort of an obsession, an infatuation that is not healthy? And I can't really say that that's real love. That's really just a crush, and it's more than that, and it's not healthy. And it's like, you just need this person. You can't live without them, and the list goes on. Well, obviously, you haven't done your inner work. You haven't done your shadow work. You haven't done all your self-hypnosis and whatever. So, because, the reality is, we do need each other per se, but we don't need someone like that. It's like, we don't need to like think that we can't live without someone, and we're just like so obsessed with them. And if we're obsessed with someone, then that's distorted. Like there's something wrong with that picture, clearly, right? So, I mean, do what you will, live how you will, think how you will think. But I can't recommend that. I can't advocate that kind of so-called relationship. So let me think. So there's different ways of putting all that. It's like you're sort of, and then you create this expectation. You put them on a pedestal, and you sort of distort them, and you make them into what you want them to be, as opposed to who they really are. And if they don't meet that, then the whole thing can just come crumbling down, and then you start seeing it for what it is. And since you put all of it outside yourself, like your happiness is now based on this illusion that sort of you've put outside yourself, and there really is no outside yourself, but you've deluded yourself into thinking that, and so that's guaranteed to just come crumbling down. I mean, we already have statistically enough relationships ending and whatnot that's virtually guaranteed to happen if that's what you're doing. I hate to tell you, but that's sort of the stark reality. So if you're doing that, then it's not too late to save it. You can work on yourself, and obviously the other person should be working on themselves too. And if they're not, then you can recommend they do it. You can do it together, you can do it separate, but just say, hey, we should start meditating, we should start doing shadow work, we should start, working on our self-esteem, we should start doing what we love to do and not giving to unhealthy habits, etc. And then when we come together over time, we can sort of, get rid of these unhealthy expectations about each other, and make it about more of a soul-to-soul connection, as opposed to some infatuation where it's all about ego needs and all this long list of criteria that we think needs to be met to be happy and all that. Because again, you're placing your happiness outside yourself, and then that's always going to come around and karmically bite you in the butt and tell you that that's not reality, that's not going to work. And so the universe will guarantee to show you how that's not going to work by it not working out. So you have been warned if you're doing that at all, and just know that the more that you build layers of delusions on top of delusions, that the whole thing is going to come crumbling down before your eyes, and you're going to learn the hard way. Sometimes that's how people have to learn, and there's really nothing wrong with that. Maybe that's what you need to do, so you can wake up and really start working on yourself instead of placing your happiness outside yourself on some other person. So, someone can contribute to making you feel good. They can make you feel great. Being with them, it's like, males and females, so let's say, for example, coming together is a wonderful thing. Once we dissolve all the distortions and the bad programming, any corrupt ideas, etc., then we can really make it into a wonderful thing. But unfortunately, there's just a lot of problems I talked about in the previous video in our society that really can put walls up to our highest fulfillment and happiness. So now on the other side of the coin, you could say, or looking on a scale, let's go up to a 10, and then we can say that this is real love, this is true love. And this is where both people have really done their work, and they're coming together, and they're each other's mirror, you could say. They're mirroring each other back, sort of this polarity, and that can really bring about positive union, and then bring layers and layers of positivity and a positivity instead of layers and layers of distortion, where eventually the whole relationship comes crumbling down. You just keep adding on to it, and you build this beautiful thing that can go on, this infinity. It can go on forever, and you add layers and layers of magic and truthfulness and real beauty to it, and then you can make this almost like a wonderful palace of a relationship, if you will, that keeps on growing and getting bigger and taller, but it never ends. You can look at it that way. It's like, and I think we're meant to meet people that are sort of opposing to us. Their strengths, they have what is strong, what is weak in us. They're strong, and then vice versa. And that's really, I think, the way it should be. And we're inevitably going to find that. I think the more sort of the opposite someone is to us in a lot of ways, the more we're going to be dynamically and magnetically attracted. And sort of they're holding up a mirror, because they're showing us the sides of ourselves that we need to work on, that they already are a master in. And so that's obviously what drives a lot of attraction. They have what we don't have. But it doesn't mean you feel like you need them, so you feel complete with that. They just inspire you to work on yourself, and you help each other grow, and it keeps going up and up and up. And given that within the context of both people having the best of intentions and open heart, they're out to be in their relationship for the better good, to help each other out. That's a wonderful thing. They want to peel all the layers of the onion within themselves that's blocking their true happiness. And what could be really more beautiful than that, right? So here it is. I'm basically, I actually had the camera down here because it's actually it's not raining, but the drops are falling from the trees, and I'm actually afraid of it kind of going in my cell phone a little bit into the holes here on the top. So I think it's basically stopped. So now that's why I kind of see more nature. But so that's kind of like how I see, your highest relationship is something like that, where it sort of seems like a twin flame, or it's definitely a soul-to-soul connection. The more connected you are to your soul or your spirit, I would actually want to say your spirit, your higher self, the more you're operating from, a higher frequency, a higher vibration, the more you're going to have like so-called twin flame like relationship or dynamics happen, where you can have like your chakras open together, or you can have I think they call it kundalini, sort of rising up and stuff. It's like, and that's a wonderful thing. I mean, what could be better than that? The relationship is not only wonderful on a physical level, but also on a spiritual level, sort of in a holistic metaphysical way. It's also on a high level too at the same time. And you kind of merge all that together and think of what you're going to have as an end result. It's a beautiful thing. It's a gift to the world, a gift to yourself, a gift to each other. And that's what I think we need to strive for, and that's what we're really lacking the most in the world, is relationships like that. They exist, but they're few and far between. Why? Because most people don't do their work. Most people are still relying on their happiness outside themselves or with someone, and it's built on that lower level kind of love that I talked about initially. And that's always going to delude you and disillusion you. And it's always going to basically come crumbling down, or you're just going to settle for the person and wonder why, you know, it just kind of becomes a lackluster relationship eventually, where you're just settling and sort of becomes very predictable. And or you're at conflict a lot of the time, but you just you always work it out to some degree, but you're never completely happy. And I don't see, you know, any high value in living that way. Some people will. Some people are happy with that. They're comfortable with it. They're used to it. People are stuck in their stuff, and they just get used to it. And it can be easier to stay stuck than to work it out, you know. So I mean, so with a higher type of relationship, you know, I mean, that's really all I have to say about that. I'm just trying to think if anything else comes to mind about that. Sometimes you have these things on the tip of your tongue, and you don't quite get them all the time. But, you know, I'll probably add, you know, more videos as time goes on. There's always going to be new epiphanies, and relationships is such a big topic that it's something that can be talked quite a bit about. You know, just I recommend basically getting in the moment, you know, getting in the present moment as much as you can. And that means, like, you sort of focus on, you know, whatever you're doing, whatever you're saying, whatever, you know, your environment, you know, just really hone in. And your head is a lot of your thoughts, because there's lots of programs in there that are going to try to sabotage a lot of your happiness, because, you know, you have all this programming from your youth, and a lot of it's distorted. A lot of it's not the programming that's not in your best interest. And like I said before, we really had to, you know, before we go give our power away to anything in this world, anything, whether it's popular or trendy or not, or what most people are believing or whatever, is if something seems suspicious, we really owe it to ourselves to do lots of deep personal research on it before we go and come to our final conclusion, because we could be giving our power away to something that's really corrupt, where a lot of bad people don't have our best interests in mind. And since that unfortunately is the case, so there's a little water still coming down, so I'm putting the phone down. But since that is the case, we really owe it to ourselves to do our own research and really come to conclusions, especially if there's lots of contradictions and things don't add up. You know, it seems like questionable, or it seems like we're really having a lot of our freedoms taken away, and things that just go against the Constitution that, you know, America was built on, and just don't make a lot of sense. They seem like really blown out of proportion, etc., etc. Then don't just be so easy to buy into it, especially if it seems like it's dividing you from other people a lot, or you find yourself, you know, estranged in relationships over and over again, and you're always wondering, like, something like, where's all the good guys? Well, to me, a lot of women who are saying, where's all the good guys? Well, they're missing the good guys, because the good guy wouldn't want to be with them. They're failing to see that, or they're pushing away good guys, and they're also deluding themselves about that, because they deep down inside feel like they don't deserve a good man, for example. There's all kinds of things. So if you're one of the ones saying, where's all the good people? Well, the truth is there's really not a lot of, like, really, really good people out there, I don't think. There's, you know, there's reasonable and a lot of reasonable and decent people, but someone who's really, really good, someone who's really, you know, be one of the people that has a high level of integrity, ethics, morals, being the change you want to see in the world, doing to others as you want done to yourself. You know, someone who's really worked on their shadow a lot, someone who really accepts and loves themselves just as you are. Because with relationships, you won't truly be able to do any of those things to someone else unless you're doing it to yourself first. If you don't truly love and accept yourself just as you are, guess what? You won't really genuinely, truly love and accept another person just as they are. You're going to have a laundry list of criteria that needs to be met, and you're going to be judging the person left, right, and center all the time, just like you're judging yourself left, right, and center all the time. If you're very insecure, then you're going to be sort of maybe a control freak, and you're going to want to try to control that person so that all of what you're insecure about, they won't trigger in you. If, let's see, if you don't have a high level of integrity, you're going to attract probably someone who lies all the time, because you're probably lying a lot yourself if you're really honest with yourself. If you don't have a high level of ethics, morals, you know, and really are doing, you know, truly knowing really well what's from right and wrong, then you're going to attract someone to you who doesn't have that either, I would say. They're not going to have high levels of ethics and morals, because if they did, they wouldn't want to be with someone who really doesn't too well. We kind of get back what we put out, you know, and you're going to get back in a lot of ways who you are. At the same time, you're also going to get back someone who's going to oppose and contrast to you, and be like a contrasting sort of polarity. And they're going to, they'll have whatever you're weak in, they'll be stronger, and vice versa. So it's kind of both at the same time. It's almost like a paradox.